Hello, I am Erin Larkin from the Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts. The Children's Theater and Performing Arts programs here at the Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts are supported in part by the Schubert Foundation, Arkansas Blue Cross and Blue Shield, Arvis Bank, Dr. Lauren Bartol Family Foot Care, Martha Logue, Target, and the U.S. Bank Foundation. Thank you for joining us today in the second in the ongoing series called Sparking Dialogue Through Drama. This program presents live readings of dramatic works to open meaningful conversations at home and in the community. Today, the center of our discussion is a piece called Nothing Rhymes with Juneteenth by nationally recognized playwright, poet, and change maker, Idris Goodwin. Nothing Rhymes with Juneteenth finds a child and parent trying to complete a rap for a school presentation. We chose this piece in honor of National Poetry Month and to acknowledge the unique contribution Black artists have made to the art form. This play was written to spark conversation about race and the Black experience in America, and we are excited to present it as part of our social impact initiative. Nothing Rhymes with Juneteenth is intended for ages 9 and up and is appropriate to multi-generational audiences. After the reading, we are pleased to have our moderator and favorite collaborator, Verda Davenport, lead a discussion with the playwright himself, the director, and panelists. We hope the performance will serve as a jumping off point to have conversations with your family and community around race and anti-racism in your own lives, using art as a vehicle of discussion. We look forward to continuing this program once the Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts opens its new building in the spring of 2022 in MacArthur Park, and hope that you will prepare to join us there to continue the conversation. And now, presenting Nothing Rhymes with Juneteenth.
Hey, what rhymes with Juneteenth?
Oh, I'm not so sure. That's a hard one. Juneteenth.
I've been sitting here blank for 10 minutes.
What are you doing?
It's for school. We're supposed to present about our favorite holiday.
I thought your favorite was Halloween.
It is Halloween.
So why are you asking me how to rhyme Juneteenth?
Because this year for Halloween, I'm going as one of these liberation soldiers in 1865 who went down to Galveston, Texas and delivered the message that the enslaved people were free. Did you know it took 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation?
Wow.
I love soldiers, but I thought, wouldn't it be cool to be one of the soldiers who marched all the way down to Galveston, Texas to deliver the good news to hundreds of enslaved people?
So your report is not about Halloween.
The report is, but the route will be about Juneteenth.
Your report is about Halloween and your rap is about Juneteenth.
Exactly. Every kid knows Halloween, but not everybody knows Juneteenth. So putting it in that route makes sense, right?
Yes, it does.
I just need to think of a rhyme.
Maybe you break it in half. Rhyme June and then teenth. So moon and
Moon thief?
Juneteenth, moon thief.
But what does liberating enslaved people have to do with stealing the moon?
Good question. What if you just didn't rhyme Juneteenth, but rhyme the words around them?
I thought of that, but if I can think of a good rhyme for Juneteenth, more people will remember it. That's what rhymes are for.
True.
Juneteenth.
Let me check the rhyming website.
There's a rhyming website?
Yep. Okay. Juneteenth.
Is it cheating to use a rhyming website?
No more or less than using a dictionary. Nope. Nothing rhymes with Juneteenth. Well, don't get frustrated. We'll figure this out. You know what?
What?
I rapped a little in middle school.
Really?
Well, once some friends and I went as a hip hop group Arrested Development for Halloween?
Who?
Doesn't matter. We learned one of their songs and performed it at the Halloween school assembly.
You did?
I think your grandma has a video of it somewhere. I was Speech, the lead rapper. I had to really study his lyrics. And the thing I noticed is that he never actually rhymes the entire word. Tennessee. He just rhymes B and C. For some strange reason, it had to be, he got me to Tennessee. So don't get caught up in trying to find the perfect rhyme. There are lots of ways to make it work.
How?
You tell me, what's Juneteenth?
A celebration.
Of?
Being free.
Free rhymes with a lot, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It does. So many things. Here, let me change it.
Ready to try it out?
Okay, so pretend I'm in my Liberation Soldier uniform.
Oh my gosh, you look amazing.
Thank you. You all know the story, divided states, civil war, bullets and hate, brother versus brother, slave versus master, a bloody chapter of American disaster. Lincoln had a plan to free every man, woman, and girl enslaved in the land. The South said, wait, that's not your call. The war wasn't over, the news got stalled. 2 years after emancipation, Black people were enslaved. I said Black and not African American because African American has so many syllables.
No problem, keep going.
Okay, let me start back a bit. The South said, wait, that's not your call. The war wasn't over, so the news got stalled. 2 years after emancipation, Black people were enslaved across the nation. They didn't know the South would lose, and soon they get the freedom news. Until then, they stayed in danger, waiting on the truce of General Granger. June 19th was the date. Jubilee, Jubilee, let's celebrate. And word is spread across the South, and that's what Juneteenth is about. So from Texas to Tennessee, hip hip hooray, now we're free. June is here, we are free. Celebrate this day for eternity. We are free, Juneteenth is here, it's a jubilee. I say June, you say teenth. June.
Teenth.
June.
Teenth.
And one more thing I must say, Juneteenth, my real favorite holiday. I just made that last part up in my head just now.
How subversive?
What's subversive mean?
It means that you are the best kind of liberation soldier. And for that, you get ice cream.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Woo. Hi, everyone. My name is Verda Davenport, and I'm here with Antonio Horn, Keith Harper, and Kevin Jones, who just performed for us Nothing Rhymes with Juneteenth by Idris Goodwin. Antonio, hi.
Hey.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very excited to be here. I'm excited. I really appreciate that right now in this time in the world, conversation is being sparked and we are all talking more. And this particular production excites me just because I'm learning things. Tell me first, will you introduce and tell me some things about Kevin and Keith and this process for you guys?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, I will just say this. You can do any genders with this play as Idris wrote it, but I wanted to do a Black man and a Black son. I wanted to show that relationship that we don't often get to see the positive side of. So we found these wonderful actors. They're both wonderful. And they really came with a lot of ideas and a lot of heart for this show. I think they really liked the script, right? fellas, and I really felt that they vibed really well together because we had talked about Juneteenth, we talked about families, and they were really invested in that process. So in our 3 rehearsals, they really created quite a bond as characters and as actors, and I think that showed well today. But
Antonio, tell me something first. You told me that you started in theater as a young person. Were you as young as Kevin here?
Well, I was 12, and I think Kevin is 11 and has been doing it longer. But here's what I'm going to tell you about Kevin. Kevin came so prepared to that first audition, including the part of the rap, which I'd asked to him to prepare. So professional, so clearly prepared, and I was blown away. And so I said to Kevin, and it's the truth, Kevin, when I was 11, I couldn't have done anything close to that, probably 1% of that. So I'm just so proud to see a young Black man who loves acting and who has that level of professionalism and preparation. It was so exciting to see. And I said, hey, if Kevin's doing that at 11, what's he going to be doing, at 12, 13, 21? So Kevin's one to watch out for. I'm just telling y'all right now. Good job, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So Kevin, tell me something. Did you know much about Juneteenth before you read this script?
Not really. But we have
I feel you.
Slaves and stuff, like the Civil War.
So you were aware of this and all during that time period? Awesome. Hey, Keith, I've seen you perform numerous times at UALR. How has your experience? 8? Is that what you said?
I said, hey.
Oh, hey, sorry. I've seen you perform. I'm very happy to see you out here. I hear that you're in Atlanta right now, and you might not be able to stay with us very long because you're on the set of a film. Is that true? Yeah?
Yes.
So how much did you know about Juneteenth before this all started?
I knew quite a bit. I love what Antonio did. He sent some background information that went further into it before we even begun rehearsals. And I was able to really dig deep and find out more about Texas and things of that nature. So I knew about it and this and that, but the information he sent, it took us a little further into it. So we grasped the understanding of it even better, I think, because of the research he did. So yeah, they helped me understand a little more.
There is a lot to know about, like a lot more to it than we're generally given information about. Was any of the information new to you, Antonio?
Everything that I put in that packet was new to me. So all I really knew was basically what the father and son talk about in the play. And I had never even participated in a real Juneteenth celebration, a few Kwanzas, but not Juneteenth. So I kind of thought, well, I know, right? I've been around a long time, but the truth is I really didn't know. So I said this to you, Verda, but I also said it to the gentleman. The way Idris wrote this, the idea that Kevin's character is bringing Juneteenth into this Halloween project and saying that we got to make a rap because people will remember it, tells me that perhaps at his school, they don't talk about it. His character school, they don't talk about it. Maybe they don't know about it. Maybe it's an interracial school or mixed race school and it's not a priority. And so this young character, Pete is Kevin's character. Pete is really lifting the consciousness. He's trying to lift the consciousness of his classmates. And I thought, well, that's leadership, that's progress right there. And then he's subversive too, as Dad is called out. So what you see is a leader in the making who has a consciousness about his Black history and his need to share that with other people. And I love that about the character.
Hey, Antonio, have you had a chance to meet Idris?
Idris and I have never met, but Idris, I got to hear your keynote from the Southeastern Theater Conference. So I feel like I know you, but I've never gotten to meet you, but I'm delighted.
Well, let me invite Idris to go ahead and turn on his camera and maybe give us a little insight into. Hi.
How are you? Great job, everyone.
So will you tell us your thoughts and your experience so far with bringing this to us, to the world?
Yeah, for sure. And hello, everybody, and thank you so much. Great performances, guys, and thank you, Antonio. It was really great. And thank you, Arkansas Fine Art Museum, and everyone who put this together. Every time anyone does any programming involving the plays, it's very special for me. These plays came from a place of sort of activism, of just wanting to contribute and just feel like I was doing something. I've been saying Black Lives Matter in my work my whole career for the most part. And so, last summer, in the 1, 2, 3 punch of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor, I was living in Louisville at the time of Breonna Taylor. My son started asking questions. He was 7 at the time. A lot of kids were asking questions, and I knew a lot of families and a lot of communities were home with each other and talking. And so I thought, we could use drama to have these kind of conversations. We use them as a tool to make some of these conversations easier, by just putting it in our bodies. And then I just said, hey, if anybody wants to do this work, by all means, because I knew the quarantine really affected theater pretty tough, but educators as well. And I just wanted to try to provide some kind of resources and just explore a different way of connecting with audience and work. I've been working in a more traditional theater model, which has its own pathways towards like a writer getting their work to an audience. And I wanted to flip that and say, well, how do I just make that relationship more direct, with communities, and they can use them in whatever way they see fit to use them. If they want to do one of the plays, if they want to do all the plays. Some people have spread it out over many months and done one play every month. Some people have, produced them like live. Some of them have just done them on Zoom, and that makes me really, really happy. So anyway, I'm just very grateful, and it was really awesome to hear. So thank you.
Thank you. Before we get into introducing our panelists, I'd like to thank Keith and Kevin for their work. And I know that you both have to move on and do your amazing rest of your day, but thank you both for a great job.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Keith. And if you can stay, Keith, you may, but you may have to go on set. I know.
I'm sticking around a little longer.
All right.
All right. So what I'll do right now is I'll take this opportunity to invite our panelists who we'll discuss further, because this is all about sparking discussion. Yes. Erica Mays is I want to read it right, a licensed psychological examiner here in Arkansas. She has worked with children and families for over 20 years. I also would like to introduce Stacey McAdoo, who is a writer, also a poet, just like Mr. Goodwin. And she is an educator here in the Arkansas School District. And she also won the 2019 Arkansas Teacher of the Year. And I have to say, let me just go ahead and do this plug, because Antonio is currently a professor for my son, who is amazing. And my son was prepared to go to Antonio by Stacey McAdoo, who is also amazing. So I feel very privileged to be here to talk with all of you guys as artists, performers, as community members, and as African Americans, to talk about what the heck is going on in our community right now. So welcome, guys, and tell us what you thought. What are your thoughts right now?
Well, can I just jump in here and say off top, I was really, really impressed with two things. One, in the play itself, that it was set in October, but they were talking about Juneteenth, which we know is in June. And for this programming, I was so appreciative that we're doing it now in April, not Black History Month, and not, around Juneteenth. So kudos to both of you for making Black history important 365 days a year.
Agreed. Agreed. So, Stacy, when did you learn about Juneteenth? Like, anybody speak up, because I know I am like Antonio. I knew about Kwanzaa. I didn't spend much time in my life talking about Juneteenth, and even with my own children, I have to basically try to, now I'm late to the game, getting them that information. What's your experience with Juneteenth?
So before we started, I talked about being in high school and me renting all of the episodes of Roots and just binge watching Roots. I had around 12th grade, right after I graduated, I was surrounded by this really conscious group of villagers, Dr. Mpata, Patricia McGraw specifically. And so I was a part of the study of African civilization. So all of this was just poured in me and shared with me. And I took it and I ran with it. And I was very upset with the educational system that I had never heard of or learned about, not just Juneteenth, but history, period, which kind of, and I don't want to dominate the time, but it kind of rolls back to the central theme or the vehicle that was used in this play, which was poetry or rap. And that's where I actually did learn the most about history, specifically from like Nikki Giovanni or KRS-One or Public Enemy. They would do all of this name dropping, and I would have to go and research to see what they were talking about. But I think I kind of veered off, so I'm gonna step back and
that wasn't a veer. I thought I want to see what Mr. Goodwin has to say about this, because I watched a couple of your videos on the interwebs. Ooh, excuse me. And I love that you use the structure of rap, use the history of rap, use all of that to help introduce a lot of that history. Talk to us about some of the things that connect you and Stacy's comment.
Yeah, well, so probably two of the most influential forms of expression that influenced me when I was really, really young were the Black church and hip hop. And so I'm only doing this because of hip hop, you know. And similarly, yeah, like I came up in the era where names like Stokely Carmichael, Marcus Garvey, you know, Haile Selassie, you know, all these names and these movements and ideas were in the rap music. And then, you know, go to the Black church, and we're talking about, you know, we're looking at text, you know, from the Bible, but we're also talking about when the march is going to be, or, you know, there's activism woven into it as well. And so this idea, this relationship between Black expression with activism, keeping the history, uncovering the history, telling the history, you know, storytelling as this sacred act, us gathering to hear each other's story as a ritual, songs being used to fulfill our spirits, but also to communicate indirectly, to send messages about when we're going to try to make a run for it. These are all things that are in my foundation and in the lineage and the cloth that I'm in. And even what we're doing right now, like, to me, that's in that lineage as well, you know?
Yeah. I love, well, one of the best things about COVID, if there's anything good about COVID, is how learning about what's going on, about people, about our history, about any new ideas that are happening. It's just created it's easier. We have more time. We've slowed down. We're reaching out across all kinds of lines. And I feel unlike Stacey, I did not have I had it, but I didn't tap into all that information at that time. And now I'm able to reach out and say, hey guys, I need to know more about this. Give me this book and tell me this. And I'm taking that time, and I feel like it's an honor and a privilege now to have that. Have you had similar experiences like that, Erica?
I have. As I was saying before, my experience was, or my knowledge of Juneteenth was very limited. And it was my children who wanted to go to the Juneteenth celebration here in Little Rock every summer that they have, that I even came to know about it. But I think it's just telling that those celebrations or activities, events that Little Rock put on brought so many children just to come hear whoever was going to be performing, the artist, but it gave them an opportunity to learn. And so it was through that, I think, that they were getting the message out. So I applaud, the presenters or whoever had the wherewithal to bring that celebration to us. Because I think that's how a lot of children younger than I did, learned about it and continuing to learn about it. So it's through that process, and they would bring artists, and even though the children went with the purpose of seeing whatever rapper was going to be performing, they were like getting some education in history as well.
Yeah, I really, the theater, like, how did you end up in the theater? Did rap, obviously, all the creative process, but what is your theater background, Idris?
So I fell into theater actually when I was in film school. So I went to film school in Chicago, Columbia College. Shout out Columbia College, any Columbia College folks in the virtual room. I moved from Detroit to Chicago to go to Columbia because you couldn't major in hip hop in 1996. So I went to study film, which I was very passionate about as well. And I would hang out with a lot of actors because, you always needed to find someone to be in your student films and stuff like that. And so all the acting students were all from the theater. And so I would help them learn their lines. I would go see their plays. And, I started to think, well, I can maybe try something like this, because I was very interested in screenwriting. And Chicago has such a vibrant theater scene. So, I was looking to really belong. I was looking for somewhere to find where I belonged and try to figure out my voice. And to me, theater gave me the opportunity to really find my voice as a writer. I felt like that was really important. I was like, if I'm gonna write films, I got to be a really good script writer. So theater, and then I just stayed longer than I thought I would, just doing theater. So that's how I fell into it. But I was also actively doing hip hop and spoken word and everything under the sun in the city of Chicago. It was just a endless playground for creativity that you could do, and you could afford to live in Chicago. You could be a sort of a working artist, an artist trying to find your way in a city like that. So yeah, that's sort of been my journey. And the last maybe 15 years, my career has taken a path, where I've the work's been able to get out further and everything like that. So part of that has been how these free plays, the series has proliferated, is because I think I'm just so well connected with so many different kind of theaters and communities across the country. So thankfully, the grassroots kind of, word of mouth thing really helped kind of spread it, so that's been my journey.
Cool. So right now, so you've reached a larger audience now of young people. And I know, do I understand it correctly that you had worked with theater for young audiences before? What's the history of working with younger audiences and families?
Yeah, for sure. So I wrote a play in 2011 called How We Got On. And it was a coming of age story. It was about these kids in the suburbs of the Midwest in 1988 when a show called Yo MTV Raps appears, and it changes their life. That play premiered at the Humana Festival of New American Plays in Louisville, Kentucky, which is a really big industry event that happens every year. So, but a gentleman named Peter Holloway from a great theater in Louisville, a family theater in Louisville called Stage One, also saw that play and reached out to me to write the script for an idea he had, which was Louisville, Kentucky, home of Muhammad Ali. The Muhammad Ali Center is right there downtown. Everybody knows, there's the lore of Muhammad Ali and Vietnam and conscientious objection and stripped of the title. And you know, Rumble in the Jungle and George Foreman, and everyone knows a lot of that. But not a lot of people know about his humble beginnings. They don't know about how he got into boxing and what that was like for him, and going to the Olympics in 1960 and coming back with the gold medal, but there's still certain restaurants he couldn't eat in. So I was commissioned to write that play. That play is called And in This Corner, Cassius Clay, which is a play that still continues to get produced. There's an audio version of it that's actually just got produced by the Atlantic Theater out of New York. So just putting that on everybody's radar. They broke it into 4 parts. And also it's streaming. There's a production of it that's been streaming pretty much throughout the pandemic that Metro Theater Company out of St. Louis produced. So anyway, I wrote that play, and then was in the audience when the play premiered, and there was about maybe 400 kids in this theater watching this play, and it was just amazing to me, the energy and the way they connected. It was very gratifying, and so from there I started doing more plays for young audiences. You know, I wrote a play for Steppenwolf Theater's young audiences program. It was a play called This Is Modern Art, which was for like more of a teenage audience. It was about graffiti in Chicago. And then wrote, you know, more plays for Stage One. And then I joined Theater for Young Audiences USA, which is a board that supports children's theaters and families theaters across the country. I'm also a member of Children's Theater Foundation of America as well. I was the producing artistic director of Stage One Family Theater for 2 years. The place where I work now, the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center at Colorado College, we have a theater company. That theater company also does a lot of TYA shows as well. So yeah, I would say, you know, and I have this other life. I've got children's books coming out. I got, you know, I live in that space as well. So and for me, so I feel like I cover the spectrum of age and experience, or at least I aspire to. But introducing young people to the power of theater, the power of drama, to me is something that's really, really important and very special, and something I'm very proud of.
So has this experience so far had like just currently the climate, do you feel like there's going to be, where do you think the theater is going to go from there? Like, do you think, I don't know, well, anybody answer this question for me?
Well, somebody else was general. I've talked a lot, and then you can come back to me.
Antonio, any thoughts on theater currently?
Do have thoughts. I mean, the way things have been going anyway, with the advent of people having access to the internet and knowing how to make films and do things on their phones, and young people are so creative, you know, they're creating their own content. They don't have to be told what to do. And I just feel like that is not just now for them, it's uplifting all of us, you know, from 6 to 60. Why am I sitting around waiting for somebody to, you know, ask me to direct or to write or to act? I think we're going to see a lot of more self-generated content, and whether it's solo or ensemble work. And I just feel like, I don't know, I feel more empowered actually by the things that have happened. And I feel also a different sense of urgency because of the things that have happened. And so that's my prediction. We're going to see an explosion of different types of theater in different forms. And I just hope that audiences are ready to receive that. You know, young people are used to that. They're used to TikTok and all these things. So I think young people will create content that will help each other, but I'm hoping all generations can open our minds and say, okay, it doesn't have to be a subscription series. It doesn't have to be a theater that has a seat that I've sat in before, that we can get our theater in multiple ways. And I think we'll all be uplifted further if we are open to it. So that's my prediction anyway.
Stacey, you're in the middle of all that too. You've got an organization, or you work with some poets. Talk to us about what you're seeing like actively right now.
Well, again, I have 2 thoughts about that. The first thought in regards to theater is I worked with a lady named Idris Jones, and she is not just a phenomenal writer, but a phenomenal educator. And she had the ability to bring people, children, students into this theater space that didn't previously have any interest or knowledge about theater, specifically through her 10-minute plays. And she would have the students write social plays that were, 10 minutes or so. So I think connecting with educators, connecting with grassroots people, and bringing theater to the people is a powerful thing, which does then transition to what you were asking me about the Righteous Poets. So I have I'm the founder of a collective called the Righteous Poets, which is a spoken word youth collective. And their most recent project is writing poetry and commercials about the bills that are being introduced in the legislative session. And so that has brought awareness, not just to poetry, but getting youth involved and interested and knowledgeable about what's going on here. So the arts are where it's at. If you want people to learn, if you want people to be active, if you want people to grow, to be an involved citizen, there's no other place for that to happen.
Just to add to that, that's such a poignant point. I think the opportunities that young children or young adolescents people have these days just at their hands, I think those are outlets. With everything going on today, they have to be able to put that into some form. Either it's live, it's visual, performing arts. I think that's just going to be what they have to do for their own mental health, and I think as a mental health professional, it's important for me and other adults to support that in whatever way they need to do to express that, because we're under so much stress every day. I think any opportunity that they can show to put that out there through spoken word or written form or whatever it is, I think we should support that, because it's cathartic, it's helpful, it's educational, and it's for our own well-being.
Anybody know of any outlets they want to share outside of the Righteous Poets? How do people get involved? Where are these places? Aside from being online, I'm not a kid. I don't know all these things.
Yeah, here in the Little Rock metro area, make it sound, a little bit bigger. The House of Art is a very welcoming space that connects poets, writers, playwrights, comedians, all of the above. Chris James is actually, I don't know if you can see my shirt, but it's Poetry and Chill, which is a shirt from his line. He started the House of Art, and my husband helps him run it and manages it. My mind just went blank, but definitely the House of Art is somewhere that you want to be at. Yeah. And it's all good. You can break verbs and that doesn't mean absolutely anything. It's no reflection on your intelligence. I love it. I do it intentionally. Now, I didn't do it intentionally then, but I do it intentionally as well. I'm muting myself, y'all. I'm muting.
I just got a text from Ripka that said the Arkansas Arts Council Fellowship this year will award $4,000 to individual artists. It's for poetry in the literary arts, and that's the fellowship through the Arkansas Arts Council. That might be nice to mention. So the Arkansas Arts Council probably has some information on their website that might give us more opportunities and things like that. Something else I wanted to, well, obviously on Juneteenth, Mosaic Templars traditionally has an event. Do Stacy or Erica, anybody know, does anyone know what the plans are for this year? No.
I was trying to wait to not talk as much. I'm absolutely positive they're having it this year. Last year, they turned it into a virtual event. I'm not sure if it's going to be virtual again this year. And there was another entity that I was going to mention as well, the Celebrate Maya project.
Yes.
Fellowship that they actually just put out an all call for writers fellowships with them. So if you check with their website or their
Celebrate Maya
pages, you can find out a little bit more.
So Celebrate Maya, the Arkansas Arts Council, obviously the Arkansas Arts Center, I think I'm not really sure, but I'm assuming they're planning on doing the next, the other play that's maybe your other play, Idris, that is in this series. It is adults, right? 2 adults? No.
Yeah, there's two other plays that are well, so there's adults in all of them. So let me just I'm just gonna run through all. I'm just gonna run through all. Okay. Somebody in the chat asked about the other ones. So I'm just run through all. There's 5 of them. You Saw Nothing Rhymes with Juneteenth. That is an adult and a child, can be played by a mother and a son, a mother and a daughter, a father and a daughter, a father and a son. There is the Water Gun Song, same thing, an adult and a child.
We did that one.
Hey, that's what's up. Good. And then there's also, geez Louise. Oh, there's a play called Act Free. And that one is kind of open. It could be young or older actors in that Act Free. Then there's one called Black Flag, and that one is about 3 college students. So those are like young adults, you know. And then there is Hashtag Matter, which is also kind of youngish adults. You know, these are, you know, folks possibly in their 20s, but you know, so they're all designed to be a little scalable. But the 2 that are sort of aimed at slightly older listeners and viewers are Black Flag and Hashtag Matter. Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted, Verda.
Whew. Technology.
There you go.
I'm not there yet. I'm just checking the time. I wanted to see if anybody else. Wait, I got notes. Okay. Something I wanted to ask about is the open source model.
Yeah. Open source for me, open source just means that I'm, you know, typically when a theater or you know, of any size or scale wants to do a play, they typically go to like an agency or a licensing company. They say, hey, I want to do this play 10 times for this many people. There's a rate, you know, there's a lot of middle people. And for me, what I mean by open source is not necessarily like changing the plays themselves, but just that they're just available. So I put the website in the chat for the Facebook stream, but it's also just basically tyausa.org/freeplay. And anyone can just download them. You know, if you want to do one play, if you want to do all 5 plays, if you want to, you know, so for me, open source means that they're just available. They're an open resource that's available to anyone. And the only thing I ask is that you do not change any words that I've written, you know, or that you don't charge significant amounts of money to do it. Like really, meaning, I mean, ideally these should be presented on the free, but if you're like, yo, we're also trying to raise some money to keep the you know, to keep the community center open, I don't mind that. But if it's like a theater that is like, hey, we're going to charge $25, you know, for this production of these plays, I just want to have a conversation about that. But that's really the you know, what I mean by open source.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're putting it out there and also encouraging other people to not only listen and hear and be part of the conversation, but hopefully starting to write their own things and sharing their own things.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm stuck. Give me something else to talk about.
Actually, I'm very curious about Miss Mays because I know that initially in our, we had this whole elaborate pre going live conversation. And Ms. Mays, you mentioned about being a psychologist or psychological examiner, something along those lines. And so I know with me, how I use poetry and theater and all of that stuff to teach through the arts. How might you use it, or how do you use it in your field?
In what I do right now, I don't use it as much, but historically, when I did more therapy, I would often allow children or adolescents to use an art format, usually through drawing or sculpting. We would craft with clay and Play-Doh and acting out those kinds of things. Because oftentimes children, they can be active with their hands and kind of express what's going on. It's more, it's easier. And for adolescents, it would be more from a journaling standpoint. And so if that was their venue, they would be able to do that. And so I would have them write passages just for a week or two, just to kind of their thoughts, and collect those at the end of the day. And then we would process those in a therapy session. So it just took that kind of format. And me, myself, I don't consider myself to be artistic, but, you know, if a child, I would give them that opportunity, and it amazed me what's inside children. You know, if you give them that avenue, they're going to soar. And so they would want to come in and say, oh, hey, I've got something going on. Can we get the Play-Doh out? You know, and I would let them go to work, and they would set up this, you know, it just amazed me what they would do. And then we talk about it, and it just made it easier. So I kind of miss that aspect of it, you know, because children will let you know what's in their hearts and their minds. You know, you just have to kind of find that way to kind of pull it out.
Well,
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I love that what you said is, you know, children will let you know what's in their minds and on their hearts, you know. And that's what I love about this work, is that it really is just about invite, you know, in a way for me, it's a way to just invite them into uncomplicate, you know, things that seem complicated, right? So like a lot of times we try to go through the front door when it comes to conversations with kids and try to see what they understand or don't. And I just trying to find indirect, you know, through play, through role play, through imagination. That's to me the way that they like to have conversations about things that they don't necessarily understand, things that maybe scare them, or you know, or just that they don't understand, you know. And I think it's vital for us as you know, perhaps youthful, but non kids, to be in dialogue with them as much as we can, because they do have a lot to teach us and show us. So anyway, I appreciate you saying that, and I like that.
Exactly.
And
I was going to.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
In your play, you demonstrated that when you had, I was going to say Kevin, but it's not. What was the character that Kevin played when he was rearranging how he was going to write the rap? And so a lot of times we have to take side trips and go around and find a new way to express or to enter whatever it is that we're entering. I thought that was beautifully done in the script.
Just to kind of piggyback on that, when he ad-libbed and added the end of the rap, and he said, I just thought of that, you know, giving him that new way of looking at how to rhyme Juneteenth, and not necessarily looking at it in that way, but choosing another way. It exposed him to another idea. So he was like, oh, I came up with something new. And so he just added that at the end.
I wanted to say something to Idris. And again, I don't know when you were writing it, what you were wanting us to get out of it, but when we were working on it, certainly we looked at those aspects that were just mentioned, but for our backstory, it was really that the father and the son did not spend much time together. The dad was always busy. And the son has never really come to him for any help like this. And he stopped him. And the dad said, you know what? My son is really important. Work can always wait, or yard work can always wait. His mom's always helping. He asked me, I'm going to be there for him. And then they found that common bond over a spoken word, right? And it was obvious the little boy's like, what? He thought, oh, people know about this, you know? So as well as we were learning about Black history, and we saw how Pete was very much about promoting Black history and sharing that with the community, we're seeing a man and his son realizing they have so much more in common. And the truth is, Erica, the way we were envisioning it, the dad didn't know much about Juneteenth. So you were saying young people, your kids taught you. That's what was happening for us in this moment. The dad was like, you know what? I haven't even, I've been too busy being a dad. I didn't think about it. So let my son drop some knowledge on me. So it was, I just felt there were so many layers, and we enjoyed so much Idris playing with all of them. So thank you for the beautiful piece.
I appreciate that. I love that. That's you know, I'm that kind of writer, you know, when I write for the stage, when I write plays, is that I hope that people take it and make it their own, you know, because it's out of my hands. Once it leaves my computer, it has to become yours, you know, and you have to, like, you know, and I intentionally try to put room in there for people's own you know, ideas and designs, and, you know, it's collaborative, you know, theater's collaborative, and even as a writer, I feel like it's important to be open to that, and it'll make it better, you know. I think there's no level of specificity that I can write in, you know, if this is a community in some part of the world that, you know, I've never even been to, they have to make it make sense for their part of the world, you know, for their audience, for their community, you know. I think there's universal themes in there, but yeah, it's got to make sense for this particular collective of artists, you know. And so I appreciate that reflection, and you guys, I mean, I really enjoyed it. It's really lovely. So, and I caught the tail end of your rehearsal too, and I appreciate what was being said. I appreciate what was being said there too. No, it's all good, man. There's no behind the curtain for me. I know how the pizza is made, you know, but I enjoy it, because that's part of, you know, process is part of it too. So anyway, salutes there.
Thank you.
Yeah, with Water Gun Song, when we produced it earlier in the, oh gosh, I don't even remember when it was, but what was really nice, it seems so simple, right? We assume like, oh, look, this is a short play, it's got a kid in it, whatever. But once you start looking at it, it's just so human and so real and so simple. And just the conversation, like, between the parent and the kid, because also in Water Gun Song, the mom's on a phone and she's not paying attention, and then she finally starts to pay attention, and it just reminded me of me. You know, it's like, we think we're gonna be present all the time. It's not always that easy. And I appreciate seeing that, and I appreciated the other parents who commented while we were you know, working, talking about how that is, you know, it just helps to remind us to be there and to be present for each other regardless. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, me trying to unmute is another funny thing. So Idris, while we were doing this, I just got a text from another playwright who does work like yours for TYA, and he asked me if you had mentioned a piece you were working on about Jimi Hendrix. I said he hadn't mentioned it. I don't know if he wants to mention it, but I'll mention it and see what he says.
So yeah, I am working on a play that was inspired by the young life of Jimi Hendrix growing up in Seattle, called The Boy Who Kissed the Sky. It's not really like his story per se. But it's very much inspired by it, inspired by the journey he went on as a young man. But you know, for me, his music is so vivid and so interesting and so active and dynamic. I just really it's mostly inspired by his music, you know, and so it's about this young creative guy who's, you know, just growing up in some really tough circumstances, you know, poverty, extreme poverty, an absent mother, you know, a very hardworking father who's absent a lot as well because he's always working, and so he's left to his own imagination a lot of the times. And it's about the guide, this sort of spirit of music, this sort of like the spirit of music and invention who enters into his life and helps guide him on a path to really making his dreams a reality. So it's all about imagination and music and how, sometimes the challenges in our lives, the confines in our lives can actually be really great motivators for the imagination, right? So Jimmy's story, one of the specific details that I'm drawn to is, and for those who may not know, like Jimi Hendrix basically changed music, American music. He basically moved, he sort of fused, the blues became R&B, R&B became rock and roll, right? Jimmy brings in this sort of jazz, the spirit of improvisation and jazz into rock and roll, but he also embraces distortion. So if a guitar or a microphone is too close to a speaker, it makes this really awful sound that they call feedback, right? Or distortion if that volume's too high. These are not good sounds. These are sounds you want to avoid in music. He sort of embraced these sounds and incorporated them into rock and roll and basically created what is known as heavy metal. And so, he's a really important American artist, but it's because of the circumstances he came up in. He first started playing his broom, then he got like an old beat up guitar with only had one string, and then so it's like he's working his way up, but he's learning how to like work those broken machines. And so, for me, I'm really interested in that, and like, because then I'm a hip hop dude. And so like, for me, hip hop comes from a similar set of circumstances, right? Like people, breakdancing, b-boys, all that, like they're not coming up in dance studios. So they're learning literally how to dance on the street. And there's all this discarded cardboard and stuff and linoleum because all these factories have closed. And so we're going to make those our dance floors. And then, I don't have instruments. They shut down the music program in my school. So I'm going to take my parents' old records and those are going to be my instruments. This record player is going to be my instrument. I'm not supposed to touch this record. And now I'm going to like express myself through touching these records. And so for me, that's kind of what this play is about. Clearly, I'm very excited about it. As you can tell, I'm sorry. But hey, you learned more about Jimi Hendrix than you came in knowing, hopefully. So anyway, this is a play I'm working on with Seattle Children's Theater in partnership with the Alliance Theater in Atlanta. And I have the great Tim Bond working with me on that, as well as some other wonderful people. So hopefully, we'll all be seeing that in person together in Atlanta and Seattle very soon. I took the long way on that one, y'all. Sorry, my bad.
I appreciate the long way. That sounds really cool. Wow. How far along are you so far?
There's a draft. I've done a few drafts of it. I think the biggest thing is that there was a while we were balancing, like, is this the Jimi Hendrix story or is this a story inspired by Jimi Hendrix? And so we were doing that back and forth. And finally we decided, for me, it's so much influenced by him and inspired by him, but it's not, his specific story. It's because I don't know that that's my story to tell. I think that's the story of his estate to tell. But for me, that's a creative choice we made. So as now we're working on it, we're kind of embracing that idea even more, that this is not Jimmy's story, but it could be Jimmy's. It's a version of Jimmy's story, but it also could be the story of so many people.
Are you thinking about adding some hip hop into it?
I wasn't until I started talking to y'all today, to be honest.
It sounds like I'm excited. Please make sure it's out there and clear and we know what's going on, because I want to see. We're gonna follow you.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, guys, it's hitting up on 1 o'clock.
I just said for sure. That's it.
Oh, for sure. Well, I hope to be at the show.
Look at you, bars.
So there you go. What? I don't know. Okay, 1 o'clock. We made it. I'm terrified. This was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it also is the most exciting thing I've ever done. I really appreciate all of you guys. I mean, it was mentioned that art saved, you know, people. Art definitely saved me. I found myself, I found my people through performing and just through meeting the people who were performing. And I really, really appreciate the work that all of you are doing, especially as a parent in two very specific cases, but then also especially as a parent, because I know that there are more kids out there getting exposed to just the creative process. And I think that helps us live, grow, and survive. So thank you all for your work. And thank you for sharing that with us here in Arkansas at the new name of the Arkansas, what is it? Fine Arts Museum. So thank you all. Thank you so much. I don't know.